What's the most uncomfortable situation you've ever had to sit through? At my nan's house, I used to sleep in her bedroom on a sofa bed. There was a curtain separating my section of room from hers. When I was 14 and staying there for some time, I came upstairs to bed one evening after playing Xbox and got into bed. I then hear the unmistakable sounds of them boning and dirty talking each other. They hadn't heard me come up, so I had the awful decision to make: either sit through this absolute pain for however long it lasted, or try and sneak across the incredibly creaky floorboards back downstairs without letting them know I overheard them. Somehow God was with me that day. I managed to sneak back downstairs, played some more Xbox for a couple hours while contemplating my mental scarring, then went back to bed. Alright everyone, buckle up. Years ago my editor assigned me to do a story. An old civilian Air Command guy had died, and his kids were going to spread his ashes from a plane over the lake where he helped find a downed aircraft decades ago. Nice local human interest piece. 2 kids, son and daughter, both adults. The whole flight aspect was organized by a local, well-meaning family friend. Let's call him Jeff. I drive to the tiny regional airport, walk to the tarmac, and the son is there already. We shoot the shit with the pilot and the son and Jeff when the daughter arrives. She's extremely obese. The pilot and I realize we have a major problem. The pilot and Jeff and the son talk, then the son goes over to talk to his sister. The wailing that came out of this woman, when told she couldn't scatter her dad's ashes because she was too fat, is burned into my brain. It was biblical. This woman was shrieking and sobbing, and we could do nothing but watch as she collapsed on the runway and had a complete meltdown. I blame Jeff for not thinking ahead. So, I dated my first girlfriend during the summer between high school and college. We got really close for a couple of 18-year-olds, so she was over at my house a lot, and my mom loved her. A few weeks into college, I decided the long-distance thing wasn't for me and broke up with her. A little while later, I got a new girlfriend at the college I was attending. Fast forward to the first day of Christmas break, and I'm bringing new girlfriend, who is now my wife, home to meet the parents, and she's going to stay the night before going home to her parents. Well, a few weeks before Christmas break, my mom decides to let ex-girlfriend move into a spare room of our house because she got kicked out of hers. Words cannot express how uncomfortable of a situation it was bringing new girlfriend home to stay the night to meet my parents, as well as the girl she replaced who was also living there. We had a farewell party for a colleague who was leaving our workplace, and during her goodbye speech in front of everyone, including our bosses, she started talking about how stressful the job was, didn't get much support, wasn't able to take proper breaks, and that no job is worth the mental stress. Needless to say, the room fell in awkward silence and our boss' face looked uncomfortable. A new boss was hired for my department at work, and a high-level woman from corporate was brought in to show him the ropes. My new boss was a sleazy little weirdo. He sort of looked like Beans from Even Stevens crossed with Mads Mikkelsen. He kept awkwardly trying to flirt with this incredibly professional and visibly uninterested woman who was just trying to do her job by teaching him how to do his. Things reached peak weirdness on her last day. There we stood, my new boss on one side of the room, our guest on the other side, me in the middle doing some work. New boss: well, are you ready to go to lunch? Corporate woman: yes, just let me run to the restroom first. New boss: oh, why, you got to pio? I have never in my entire life wished that I could turn into a puddle of liquid and slide out of that room, secret world of Alex Mack style, than I did at that moment. Fun fact, he was fired a few months later, but that's another story for another day. I was at a wedding and the best man went off the rails during his speech at the reception. It was your stereotypical drunken rambling. But it was the guy's second marriage, so he was talking about his first wife and how he's good at most things except relationships, etc. People were audibly groaning and booing the guy and telling him to sit down. It was a truly Michael Scott moment. So awkward. My friend telling me how shitty his relationship was becoming and wanting to end it moments before his girlfriend texted me for advice on how to tell him she was pregnant. I was looking at my mom's phone cause she wanted to show me some pictures from what she did that weekend. I swiped one too many times and came across one of her nudes. I felt my soul jolt out of my body seeing that shit. Friend of mine was away at college. He was an only child to doting older parents who believed he was a miracle baby as they were deeply Catholic. He died in his dorm closet with his dick in his hand and a rope around his neck. His parents were wildly distraught, especially as suicide is a sin, and they believed he couldn't go to heaven. Their priest had been consoling them for days. I was elected to tell them the truth. His other friends couldn't do it. This involved explaining, gently, what erotic asphyxiation with the priest present. Mom had been crying for days. There was a moment of shocked silence, then it appeared she started crying harder, but in fact she was laughing. Finally she could speak. I never could get him to leave his ding-dong alone. She turned to the shocked priest and asked, "Purgatory?" To which he shrugged. "Turns out you can pray someone out of purgatory and into heaven." Mom was much relieved. I did jury service, and I sat on a case about a guy who murdered his partner and dismembered her body. I initially thought it was a theft case, but little did I know the case was quite graphic, and I remember thinking, how can someone do such a thing? Yet whenever I looked at him, his lack of remorse gave it away. Eventually he confessed and gave a rather graphic description of the events. Suffice it to say, that has remained with me for the past 10 years. When I was about 16-17, I used to get really bad rashes under my breasts. It was painful, itchy, and gross. So I went to a dermatologist to help determine what was going on. I've always had big boobs, but I was kinda introverted, shy, and very self-conscious about my body. So I was in the examination room, naked from the waist up, waiting for the doctor. In walks the doctor, followed by about 6 interns or medical students. Nobody had asked me if it was okay to have a crowd staring at my breasts. While I sat and squirmed uncomfortably, the students all thoughtfully looked at my breasts. It was pure hell. This was in the 70s. I started using cotton-only bras and surprise! The rashes cleared up. A couple of years ago my business partner wanted to get massages, something I really don't like, and she found a special for 2. However, it was clearly meant for romantic 2s. It was at a spa that was really just a converted house, and the massage room was like the size of my bathroom. Small. There was no sort of privacy between the beds, and I am hugely conservative in that regard, whereas she was quite happy to rip all her clothes off in the room, no underwear even. It was insanely uncomfortable, and as soon as the massage was over, I got dressed and went to the bathroom. They still had to do a facial, but I just did it in my actual clothes. No thank you. Having my friend's mom drive me back to my parents after we totaled said friend's car, ripping it around through a cornfield. She couldn't even form full sentences. She just kept repeating different iterations of "what were you thinking?" My 79-year-old mother-in-law with Alzheimer's telling us that she had had sex the previous night with another resident of her nursing home. She had been celibate for 20 years up until then. We think. We were getting internet installed when I moved to the town I live in. I was 16 at the time. I had surgery the day before and was bleeding slightly off and on, and kept a hand in my pants to prevent the material from sticking to my wound. Anyway, I thought the internet maintenance guy had left. I went to the living room and turned on the TV. It immediately was on some kid's show. He walked back into the room and saw me with my hands in my pants. In his view, it could only possibly look like I was touching myself to kid shows. The silence was horrible as he slowly crept back out of the room. Farting in a lecture theater during exam time. We were all spaced out, so wasn't too hard to know that it was me. Never attended classes for that subject ever again, just watched online recordings. In the cinema, I interlocked my fingers with the kid sitting beside me for a full minute. Turns out, he wasn't my kid. A guy offered to walk me home from an event when I had found out barely an hour ago that he sexually assaulted another student. Got the fuck right out of there, got a ride from some nice gals instead. A similar thing happened in my law class. We were talking about Dred Scott v. Sanford, and my professor, being a fan of randomly picking names off of the attendance sheet, calls on a girl with a stereotypically Asian name. He then slowly says, "Do you understand American slavery?" Like with hand gestures and everything, and she, in an American accent and in perfect English, goes, "Yes." I took history in high school. Never in my life have I wanted to escape a social situation more than that. My drunk sister starting a fight with her BF, trying to get him to hit her for threatening to call the cops, and proceeding to smash her own head against the wall to make it look like he did.